It's another Monday video, and today we're gonna talk about stress in cats and how to make a cat-friendly, stress-free environment for your cat. So today we're mostly focusing on cats that are indoors, either exclusively or spend most of their time indoors, and how to actually try and make our house more comfortable, convenient and stress-free for them. To start with, it's worth mentioning the signs of stress you can see on your cat, and this can really be a lot. And sometimes people miss them and think that it is normal behavior or it's just a cat, that's why he or she is behaving in this way. So first of all, something that's very common, and it's a common complaint when pet owners bring their cats to the vet, is inappropriate urination. So either going back and forth in the litter tray, struggling to urinate, or showing even worse symptoms. Another very common symptom, again, which is a common complaint that comes to the vets, it is over-grooming, which can be sometimes missed as a normal behavior of the cat by the owners. Other symptoms like sleeping or resting for a long time during the day can be missed as a normal behavior as well. Aggression, straying around the house, aggression directed to specific objects or even people can all be signs of stress in the cat. Now, the causes of stress in cats can not only be spotted in the environment itself, but sometimes us, people and pet owners, can cause stress to our own pets. Starting from the environment, there can be a lot of things that are wrong in a house that a house cat lives, such as lack of hiding space or lack of enrichment, and we're going to explain these things in a bit, or even cats that are bored in their environment and they don't have enough things to interact with or express their natural behavior. On the other hand, sometimes pet owners can become the stress factor for their cats by trying to interact more than they should or more than a cat wants with their cats, and that can cause increased stress to the pets. You might want a little pen and paper to write down all the recommendations I'm going to explain in a bit, just because most of the times all these things sound like a lot of theory that we vets recommend to our clients and pet owners, but in reality these are all things that can help your cat even overcome some diseases like cystitis, for example, the inappropriate urination, spraying, etc. So, number one, that's very important for me, is what we call the enrichment of the environment. What we mean by that is that we need to make provisions in our house for the cats to actually express their natural behaviors. So cats in wild will naturally hunt, explore, hide, socialize if they want, and climb. So we need to make sure that there are appropriate toys, scratching posts, etc., that make the environment both interesting but comfortable for our cats to live in. Second of all, it's very important, and it's part of the first actually, for the cats to have a place to hide. So a house that's very minimalistic and doesn't have any places for the cat to feel like hiding when she needs to, and in this way she feels protected, really, it might be not that good for your own cat. Another thing that I see more and more, mainly here in England rather than Greece really, is cat flaps in the house. So it is a perfect way for our cats to go outside whenever they want, and some of them might be actually controlled by the microchip of our cats. But we shouldn't really forget that at the same time the cat flap might be let's say an insecurity thing for our cat, just because obviously other cats might be able to penetrate from that flap or any other little animals, and that can really feel like a stressful factor for our own cat. There is a lot of discussion about litter trays and the number of the trays that a household should have, and it really depends on the number of the cats really. So a general rule that we'd like to stick with is number of the cats +1, and the reason why we'd like to have a lot of litter trays in the house is just because the cats like to have choices, plenty of choices to choose where they can urinate and defecate. Urination and defecation are times that cats feel really vulnerable at. So we need to make sure that the trays are really placed in areas around the house so that the cats feel quite safe and secure. So these would be probably away from doors or cat flaps or any area that is considered quite stressful for our own cat. Now, coming to food and water, for sure cats are not the same as dogs. So dogs are really routine animals, so they would love to know that 8:10 in the morning and 7:30 in the evening it's food time, but that doesn't work really for cats. So cats in the wild will probably spend about a quarter of their day to stalk or hunt or eat their prey animals. So we understand that more likely cats would like to have the food available all the time so that they can graze and eat whenever they want. There are of course cats that would prefer a more definite routine, but most of the cats probably won't. We should be careful as well choosing the material of the cat food and water bowls as well. For example, metallic bowls might be easy by a hygienic aspect, but for cats that wear a little collar with a little metallic thingy hanging off it, every time they go to eat, that might bang and make a very annoying sound. That might be a stress factor for our cats. So we need to be a bit careful choosing the right bowl for them. Most of the cats would prefer the water bowls as well to be full rather than have a very shallow water content, so that they don't really have to put their head really deep in that bowl, because in this way they feel quite vulnerable. Other cats, on the other hand, prefer a lot more fountains or other ways of drinking water rather than a classic bowl. With regards to the number of the bowls, it's good, particularly for water, to stay with the rule of 1 bowl per cat plus 1 extra, so that the cats can have the opportunity to have water in other places really. And it's good both for food and water bowls to make sure that they are placed in areas where the cat doesn't feel vulnerable, just because the time of eating and drinking water can be a vulnerable for them.